Just like any other fun story, history can have its surprises, twists, and turns, and here, in my opinion, are the top 10 most surprising moments in history. Number 10. The Mongols failed to invade Japan twice due to a storm. So the Mongols wanted to invade Japan, then a storm stopped them. And yeah, wow, that's a terrible bit of luck. Why don't they try again? Oh, another storm stopped them. The exact same thing happened twice, and really, it's quite a surprising coincidence, and it essentially saved Japan from Mongol invasion. Number 9. Alexander the Great conquering Persia. Yes, I know, Alexander the Great is called the Great for a reason. But, you have to admit, the, at the time, biggest empire ever formed in the history of humanity, wielding tens of thousands of men at any given time, was destroyed by a young king from Macedonia. First, at the Battle of Issus, he was outnumbered 2-1, but decimated the Persians anyway. Then later, at the Battle of Gaugamela, he was outnumbered 4-1, and decisively defeated Persia. The surprising success of Alexander has fascinated many historians and leaders alike for a reason. Number 8. Napoleon invading Spain when he did. What most people don't realize is for a while, Napoleon and Spain were actually allies. They both teamed up against the British and even worked together to invade Portugal. Sure, occasionally they butted heads, but there was no point in Napoleon invading Spain. Yet to everyone's surprise, he turned upon his ally and tried to take over Spain, which would ultimately help lead to Napoleon's overall failure. You'd think if he was going to invade Spain, he'd wait until after Britain was out of the way, but he didn't. Number 7. The Confederates didn't advance after Bull Run. So as the American Civil War started, both sides raised an army and were ready to fight. The first significant battle was at the Battle of Bull Run, in which the Union Army invaded Virginia. They hoped to capture the Confederate capital as quick as possible to end the war as soon as possible. However, to the North's surprise, the South won the battle and drove them away. The Union Army retreated, but what was really surprising was that the Confederates didn't chase after them. In theory, they could have chased after them and tried to maybe take the Union capital at Washington, D.C. After all, the amount of defenses there would actually be quite small, as everyone expected a short and quick war. If the Confederates chased after them and won a battle there, they may have even won independence then and there. But for whatever reason, they did nothing, allowing the Civil War to continue for another 4 gruesome years. Number 6. Germany halted at Dunkirk. Germany has just routed the Allies in World War II. They sent a fully modern and equipped army through the supposedly impassable Ardennes forest. The Allies were caught by surprise and were suddenly about to be surrounded on all sides by German forces. They began a retreat towards Dunkirk, hoping that they could eventually evacuate and escape. However, Hitler's blitzkrieg tactics limited the amount of time they had. Dunkirk was surrounded, but the Allies began evacuating. Hitler could have simply continued the assaults, and he would have killed tons of soldiers in a very clear and decisive victory. But mysteriously, he ordered panzer units to halt. Apparently, he was worried that the marshes in their area might hamper their efforts. But because of his delay, 340,000 soldiers managed to escape. This surprising halt order was perhaps one of Hitler's most critical mistakes, and a surprising relief for the British and French forces. Number 5. Attila the Hun not invading Rome. Attila the Hun was ravaging Europe and causing chaos. Other barbarians, afraid of the Huns, were invading Rome because they figured Rome would protect them from the Huns. As the Western Roman Empire was 25 years away from collapse, Attila launched a massive campaign. Attila was defeated in the Battle of Catalaunian Fields, but still wielded a mighty force. He decided in the year 452 to invade Italy. Rome had already been sacked in 410 by the Visigoths, so it was clearly vulnerable. If Attila couldn't conquer all of Europe, maybe he could conquer Italy, depose the Western Roman Emperor, and that would be that. However, before he arrived in Rome, he ended up encountering Pope Leo I, and they had a discussion. No one knows quite what they spoke of, but Leo I was able to convince Attila to turn away and spare Rome. Attila even made peace with Rome altogether. While it's true that disease was beginning to spread among the Huns, that doesn't mean Attila might not have tried. But either way, this saved Rome for another 24 years and led to Attila marrying another wife, where he partied so hard he died of blood loss from a nosebleed overnight in his drunken sleep. Number 4. The Bronze Age collapse. During the Bronze Age, several civilizations were thriving. The Hittites, the Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and others were all doing great. Then, there was the Bronze Age collapse. A mix of invasions from a mysterious group of people known as the Sea Peoples, along with other unknown groups, caused nearly every city from Troy to Gaza to be burnt to the ground and destroyed. The entire Hittite and Mycenaean civilizations collapsed as well. Egypt was driven out of Syria, Babylon was sacked, and Egypt itself eventually collapsed later on as a result of the strain. The surprise of all these events ruining progress, literacy, and economic growth for most of the ancient world is agreed by historians to be one of history's biggest disasters of all time. Number 3. China stopped its explorations. During the Ming Dynasty, they were sending a lot of ships out on the seas for expeditions. Trade increased, diplomatic relations were better, and more areas were mapped out. They managed to reach the southern coast of Africa and several areas in Indonesia. Then mysteriously, they were ordered to randomly stop. The surprising factor is both how there was no known valid reason to do so, as China was very rich, and then the other surprising factor is the timing. They stopped expeditions in the 1430s. Perhaps, if they would have kept doing them, they could have discovered the Americas before Spain did in 1492. This could have potentially changed history as we know it, but to our surprise, they just stopped. Number 2. Persia failed to take Greece the second time around. Okay, Xerxes, come on, you had 10 years. 10 years. 10 years since the first failed invasion of Greece. You had more men, more supplies, yet you somehow failed to beat Greece the second time around. No excuses, Xerxes. None. How can you fail this badly? You're supposed to rule the ancient known world and have tons of resources and men at your disposal. Did you not learn from Darius's mistakes? Apparently not, because your blunder saved Western civilization as we know it. And the number 1 most surprising event in history is Napoleon taking power in France the second time around. This is the ultimate surprise in history. After years of fighting, Napoleon is defeated. Keep in mind, this is a long period of fighting. Napoleon was campaigning for nearly 20 years. You'd think, after having the major European powers taking Paris after you've lost tens of thousands of troops over the years, would mean Napoleon would be done. In theory, he was. He was forcibly exiled to the Italian island of Elba, where he was to live out the rest of his life. But he decided he wanted to take power in France again. Surprising? Yes, but it gets even better. He escaped, then in France, he's spotted, and the French army is ordered to capture him. Then, no joke, he walks up to the army, no weapon of any kind. He exposes his chest and said simply, "If you want to shoot your emperor, then here I am." Then, to the world's surprise, the army all dropped their weapons and agreed to join Napoleon. Yes, that literally happened. And guess what? It happened again. Each army France sent, no one liked the Bourbon kings. Napoleon, by literally exposing himself to an entire army, allowing them to kill him, was not killed. Napoleon then retook the throne in France and managed to convince all of France to go to war again. Sure, he lost, and that isn't a surprise, but the fact that he was able to take back control of France single-handedly is history's biggest twist. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you want to see more.